Hey Chip, how's it going? Today is the 4th of July. It's 6:30 in the evening on Saturday. We had a phone call this morning. We played Animal Crossing and we did diving into the sea for the first time and it was really fun. We got sea anemones and sea urchins and sea slugs and mollusks, what's it called, a whelk, seaweed, pearls, sea star, sea pineapple. We got all sorts of stuff and it was really good. And we caught an arapaima as well, and you enjoyed it, and so did I. And no, it was really nice. And we read a little bit of the book, The Slime, and I wanted to show you this one. So this one is really, really special, magical one. And this one is one that you got for me for my birthday this last Wednesday on the 1st of July. I was 37 years old, and I received this one from you, and it's amazing. So, I don't know how easy this is to see, but essentially it's a clock, pocket watch. It's a pocket watch, and inside of the pocket watch has got my star sign, Cancer, which is July, and it's in Japanese time. It came in Japanese time when I received it, and I want to leave it in Japanese time, so you can always remind me of your time when you're on, what time you're on. And you know what? At the moment, I'm going to put it over the top of that one, like that. And so it's going to sit there with your frame. That was in Whitby, and you had a fish and chips, and it was oishi. Right, okay, so today is the end of this one, the Twits. This is going to be part 4, and the Twits are two silly otos, like Oba-san and Oji-san. And from memory, they have been really nasty to the animals, and they were going to stick the birds to the branches, and then they were going to cook them. But the birds and the animals have fought back, and now it's a bit of a war because the monkeys who were in the cage, who helped the birds, have decided to play a trick on them. And I think what they've done is they put all of the stuff upside down inside of their house when they've come back after they've gone to get shotguns. And they've come back, and upside down everything is in their house, and I think they're going to get stuck upside down with the glue because they made the monkeys always upside down, and the monkeys are getting their revenge. The Ravens Swoop Over is the name of this chapter. They had only just finished the job when the roly-poly bird came swooping in, screaming, "They're coming back! They're coming back!" Quickly the birds flew back onto the roof of the house. The monkeys rushed into their cage and stood upside down, one on top of the other. A moment later, Mr. and Mrs. Twit came marching into the garden, each carrying a fearsome-looking shotgun. Or it just says gun, but it's a shotgun, I think. "I'm glad to see those monkeys are still upside down," said Mr. Twit. "They're too stupid to do anything else," said Mrs. Twit. "Hey, look at all those cheeky birds still up." "They're on the roof. Let's go inside and load our lovely new guns, and then it will be bang, 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 and bird pie for supper." Just as Mr. and Mrs. Twit were about to enter the house, two black ravens swooped low over their heads. Each bird carried a paintbrush in its claw, and each paintbrush was smeared with a sticky glue. Look, upside down on their head, and there's glue on top of them. As the ravens whizzed over, they brushed a streak of sticky glue on the tops of Mr. and Mrs. Twit's heads. They did it with the lightest touch, but even so the Twits both felt it. "What's that?" cried Mrs. Twit. "Some beastly bird has dropped his dirty droppings on my head." "On mine too," shouted Mr. Twit. "I felt it, I felt it." "Don't touch it," cried Mrs. Twit. "You'll get it all over your hands. Come inside and we'll wash it off at the sink." "The filthy, dirty brutes," yelled Mr. Twit. "I'll bet they did it on purpose. Just wait till I've loaded up my gun." Mrs. Twit got the key from under the doormat where Mugglewump had carefully replaced it, and into the house they went. They're going to get stuck upside down. The Twits are turned upside down. Look, they've gone in there. Like, what's going on? Everything's on the wrong way up. What is going on? "What's this?" gasped Mr. Twit as they entered the living room. What's happened? Screamed Mrs. Twit. They stood in the middle of the room looking up. All the furniture, the big table, the chairs, the sofa, the lamps, the little side tables, the cabinet with bottles of beer in it, the ornaments, the electric fire, the carpet, everything was stuck upside down to the ceiling. The pictures were upside down on the walls, and the floor they were standing on was absolutely bare. What's more, it had been painted white to look like the ceiling. Look! Screamed Mrs. Twit. That's the floor! The floor's up there! This is the ceiling! We are standing on the ceiling! We're upside down! Gasped Mr. Twit. We must be upside down! We are standing on the ceiling looking down at the floor! Oh, help! Screamed Mrs. Twit. Help, help, help! I'm going to feel giddy. So am I. Sorry, I'm beginning to feel giddy. So am I, cried Mr. Twit. I don't like this one little bit. We're upside down and all the blood's going to my head, screamed Mrs. Twit. If we don't do something quickly, I shall die. I know I will. I've got it, cried Mr. Twit. I know what we'll do. We'll stand on our hands. Then, anyway, we'll be the right way up. So they stood on their hands and, of course, the moment the tops of their heads touched the floor, the sticky glue that the ravens had brushed on a few moments before did its job. They were stuck. They were pinned down, cemented, glued, fixed to the floorboards. Through a crack in the door, the monkeys watched. They jumped right out of their cages. Look here, they're stuck upside down with the glue. Come in. Silly sillies. The moment the Twits had gone inside, and the roly-poly bird watched, and all the other birds flew in and out to catch a glimpse of this extraordinary sight. Hey, look, the next chapter is called The Monkey's Escape. That evening, Mugglewump and his family went up to the big wood on top of the hill, and in the tallest tree of all they built a marvellous tree house. All the birds, especially the big ones, the crows, the rooks and the magpies, made their nests around the tree house so nobody could see it from the ground. Okay. You can't stay up here forever, you know, the roly-poly bird said. Why not? Asked Mugglewump. It's a lovely place. Just you wait till the winter comes, the roly-poly bird said. Monkeys don't like cold weather, do they? They most certainly don't, cried Mugglewump. Are the winters so very cold over here? It's all snow and ice, said the roly-poly bird. Sometimes it's so cold a bird will wake up in the morning with its feet frozen to the bough that he's been roosting on. That's not good, is it? Get your foot frozen, it's that much cold. Then what shall we do? Cried Mugglewump. My family will all be deep freezed. No, they won't, said the roly-poly bird, because when the first leaves start falling from the trees in the autumn, you can all fly home to Africa with me. Don't be ridiculous, Mugglewump said. Monkeys can't fly. You can sit on my back, said Roly-Poly bird. I shall take you one at a time. You will travel by the Roly-Poly Superjet, and it won't cost you a penny. The Twits get the shrinks. And down here in the horrid house, Mr. and Mrs. Twit are still stuck upside down to the floor of their living room. It's all your fault, yelled Mr. Twit, thrashing his legs in the air. You're the one, you ugly old cow, who went hopping around shouting, we're upside down, we're upside down. And you're the one that said to stand on your head so we'd be the right way up, you whiskery old warthog, screamed Mrs. Twit. Now we'll never be free. We're stuck here forever. You may be stuck here forever, said Mr. Twit, but not me. I'm going to get away. Mr. Twit wriggled and squirmed, and he squiggled and wormed, and he twisted and turned, and he choggled and churned. But the sticky glue held him to the floor just as tightly as it had held the poor birds in the big dead tree. He was still as upside down as ever, standing on his head. But heads are not made to be stood upon. If you stand on your head for a very long time, a horrid thing happens, and this was where Mr. Twit got his biggest shock of all. With so much weight on it from up above, his head began to get squashed into his body. Quite soon it had disappeared completely, sunk out of sight. into the fatty folds of his flabby neck. "I'm shrinking," burbled Mr. Twit. "So am I," cried Mrs. Twit. "Help me! Save me! Call a doctor!" yelled Mr. Twit. "I'm getting the dreaded shrinks." And so he was. Mrs. Twit was getting the dreaded shrinks too, and this time it wasn't a fake, it was the real thing. Their heads shrank into their necks. Then their necks began shrinking into their bodies. And their bodies began shrinking into their legs, and their legs began shrinking into their feet. And 1 week later, on a nice sunny afternoon, a man called Fred came round to read the gas meter. When nobody answered the door, Fred peeped into the house, and there he saw, on the floor of the living room, 2 bundles of old clothes, 2 pairs of shoes, and a walking stick. There was nothing more left in the world of Mr. and Mrs. Twit, and everyone, including Fred, shouted, "Hooray!" And that is the end of the story. I think that's probably enough but it just gives you an idea about beards and shrinks and other bits at the back, but I guess that'd be enough for today. Okay, so that's another book done. I think we've done the witches and the twits, and I've done other ones for you on the audio, which I might actually upload because otherwise they're not there for you, and you might want to listen to them at some point. And if you've got them on the YouTube, then it's quite nice, isn't it? So yeah, I'll do that for you. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this book. The next book is a David Williams book, and it's about something to do with the Midnight Gang, I think it's called, and they go and do adventures when it's supposed to be internet time, but I think it'll probably be quite fun, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, that's it. That's me for now. Love you lots. Keep fighting the good fight, and oh, also, well done for Kenda. You and Akar doing training together now. That was really nice to see. Keep up the good work. I love you lots, and I miss you. Bye.